Hey, Charlene.
Whoa.
Hey, Kim. Hi, Karen. Nice to
Hello.
see some familiar faces here.
Hi, Karen.
Hello. How are you tonight?
I'm good.
Hi, everyone.
Welcome, everyone. Is my audio coming through okay?
Yeah.
Yep.
Yes.
Fantastic. Okay, so since we're doing a Zoom here as opposed to a normal webinar type situation, I'm just going to ask everyone to mute because we got a ton of people here and a lot of background noise. So if everyone could mute themselves, that would be great. And then there is a hand raise option in the Zoom menu. So feel free to use that hand raise option. If we run into any technical difficulties during the call, if I disappear, if the internet goes down, just give me a minute. We'll hop back on. If you're having any technical issues with audio or video, log out, log back in. Generally, that solves most of the problems that we might have. All right. Well, as folks who have worked with me before know, I do like to start and end things on time. We're going to go for about an hour and a half this evening, but let's get started right away so that all of your time is respected. Let me share my screen and we'll get started. Okay, well, there is a chat function. Unfortunately, I cannot see the chat while I'm presenting here. So go ahead and chat amongst yourselves, but I will not be able to see anything until the presentation is done. So if you do have a burning, urgent question, do go ahead and raise your hand, and I should be able to see that and be able to respond. All right. Just trying to shrink up my image here. We've still got lots of folks coming in. Great. Go ahead and introduce yourself in the chat. Let people know maybe where you're from and what type of writing you do. All right, I think I'm just gonna go no visuals here with the video because I cannot get it to show just me. Oh, maybe I can like this. There we go. All right, folks, let's rock and roll. Okay. Welcome to the webinar. You have all made a great decision to be here this evening and to spend your Friday night with me learning and thinking about writer's craft, that beautiful art form that we are all a part of. In today's presentation, we're going to look at the secrets to writing a fun and focused first draft of your book. For a long time, I was really focused on productivity when it came to writing and helping writers. But I've been doing this for over a decade now, and the longer I do it, and perhaps the older and wiser I get, the more I want to ensure that the entire process is fun and enjoyable, that it's not just about us grinding away. So as folks continue to join, just please, if you can mute your microphone, that would be great. So if you pay attention, if you take notes, there was a worksheet I sent out to you. Hopefully you got that. If you didn't, get out your notebook, get out your iPad or whatever it is you like to take your notes on. And if you do that, you are going to be kilometers ahead of all the other writers out there. And I use kilometers instead of miles because, yes, I am a Canadian. I was born a Canadian. And I will always be a Canadian. So a little bit about me. I'm Canada's #1 writing coach, but I work with authors from all around the world to help them get ideas out of their heads onto the page and into readers' hands. I've worked with Canadians, Americans, Australians, all over Great Britain. I've got a Swedish client, so I've worked with writers from all around the world. I'm also a writer myself, and that's something I'd really encourage all of you when you are choosing to learn from an influencer or an expert or a teacher or a coach. I really encourage you to look for folks who have done what it is you want to do, who have been there in the trenches, writing books themselves. And so on my publication end, I have a book called Smash Fear and Write Like a Pro, which is a book about the mindset of being a writer and overcoming some of those challenges that we face. I have a book called The Novel Writer's Blueprint, 5 Steps to Creating and Completing Your First Book. So those are my nonfiction writer's instructional books, but I'm also a novelist myself. So I have a young adult horror, sci-fi, fantasy mashup called The Page Turners. I've got 2 books in that series and a third on the way shortly. I've also a giveaway a book called Novel Advice, Motivation, Inspiration, and Creative Writing Tips for Aspiring Authors. You can grab that one free on my website or just email me after the webinar and say, hey, Kevin, I'd love a copy of Novel Advice, and I'll get that to you. My last fiction novel was a thriller called M School. And as you can guess from the cover, it was dark and violent. So I've written on that end of the spectrum, but I'm also a father. I have 3 daughters. And so I've also done children's picture books like Rocket Princess versus Snaggletooth the Dragon and Rocket Princess and the Princess Rocket Squad. So I've really covered the full gambit of fiction and nonfiction. In fact, I worked as a writing ghostwriter for a time, working with a number of high-level executives and business leaders to ghostwrite their books for them. And those books were primarily focused in the leadership and the business space. I'll just remind everyone to try to mute their microphones, please, while we're presenting here. I'm also the host of a podcast called The Writing Coach. Sometimes I share my thoughts on craft. Other times I interview folks who work with writers to help them excel. Other coaches, editors, book marketing experts, those sorts of things. I also, well, this was before COVID. Prior to COVID, when we used to have a lot more live events and book conferences here in Ottawa, Canada, where I live, I was often asked to moderate panels at these sorts of live events. And of course, I am a writing coach. I work with writers in group programs as well as one-on-one to help them get their books written and written, in as fun and enjoyable and productive a way as possible. But okay, thank you for bearing with me. I know some of you know me well. Some of you, this is the first time we've met. So wanted to give you a little bit of background of who you're dealing with here. But enough about me. This webinar is not about me. It is about all of you. So I want you to see if you see yourself in any of these types of writers that I'm about to list here. You've never written a book before and are now ready to give it a shot. You've attempted to write a book before, but failed to complete it. You've been actively working on a book for years, but just can't seem to get it finished. You've written a book before, and you're now looking for a quicker and more productive way to write a high quality first draft. Go ahead in the chat and type in there which of these apply to you. So let's go. Never written a book before, but ready to do it. You've attempted to write a book before, but haven't completed it yet. You're actively working on a book but are struggling to complete it, or you are already a published author but you're looking for a quicker and more productive way to write a high quality first draft. Do any of those sound like you? And as I said, I unfortunately cannot. Well, actually, can I? Can I click here and see the chat? I can. Okay. Let's see what's going on in the chat. Okay, Vin is the first one. Same with Margaret and User. Karen is ready to write a book. Kim attempted but failed. Hey, we've all been there, Kim. Written a book but want to write faster. Great. Okay, so we're getting a nice mix of all of them. Every time I run this webinar, I find that normally one of those four categories tends to capture most of the people on the webinar. Okay. Now, if you've tried to write a book but struggled to finish a first draft, I know exactly how you feel. And that's not hyperbolic. You and I probably have a lot more in common than you might think. So it's flashback time. Flashback to young Kevin. I had just finished a master's degree in English literature. I graduated and I did what everyone else in my cohort did. What do? You get a master's degree in English literature and then you start writing your novel, right? We all did it. That's what we were there for. However, 7 years later, I was still working on that novel, on my very first manuscript. So if any of you have been working on something for years, believe me, you are not alone. I've been there and I've worked with so many writers who were there, who are just can't seem to get that first book done. And it's honestly painful. It's a painful experience on multiple levels. As I'm sure you know, it's creatively painful. It's emotionally painful. It's intellectually painful to have this burning desire to write a book and this knowledge that you can do it. And yet for some reason, you're struggling to get it done. So after 7 years of struggling and feeling like I was banging my head up against a wall, I stopped for a moment and I said, there's got to be a better way to go about this. Stephen King publishes like 2 books a year for the last 40 years. I've been working on the same one for 7 years. I've got to be doing something wrong. There's got to be a better way to come at the drafting process. And for a time there, I became really obsessed with productivity and I deconstructed my workflow, the way I was going about trying to write a book. I eliminated everything that was slowing me down and standing in my way. And then I sequenced the remaining steps to produce maximum results. So what I was left with was a system for writing. I took this vast, overwhelming project that is writing a book and turned it into a more organized and simple system that propelled me past the roadblocks that hold up so many writers. I applied what I had learned. I finished my book. And I launched my author career. And after that, I ended up launching my career as a writing coach. So I would not be here today speaking to you if I hadn't taken the time to slow down and say, hey, there's got to be a better way to do this. So on today's webinar, I'm going to share with you the techniques that allowed me to finally finish that book, write and publish a dozen more, and help hundreds of authors do the same thing over the last decade. Now, I want to speak to you a little bit here about what I consider to be the 6 steps in the book production process. So we start with stage 1. Story planning. Now, I know several of you, many of you on the webinar tonight just finished up the story plan program. So you've done this, right? You've completed stage 1. You've laid the groundwork for an incredible first draft. Stage 2 is writing that first draft, getting that first draft completed. Stage 3 is the beginning of what I consider a three-phased revisions process. So, phase 1 of the revisions process is story discovery revisions. We had a plan of attack for how our book was going to go, but now that it's actually written, we're taking a look and we're seeing what's there, what works, what doesn't. We might be removing entire scenes, we might be merging characters, we might be adding scenes or taking things away. We're still making these big structural story revisions to the manuscript. Once that's completed, we move to stage 4 of the book production process, which is phase 2 of the revisions process. And I call this amplification revisions. This is when we know that Act 2, Scene 3 is the coffee shop scene. It's not going to change. Moving that around was what the first phase is about. This phase is about saying, how can we make that coffee shop scene as effective as possible? How can we make it more emotional? How can we ensure that the pacing works? How can we ensure that the character blocking and the environment is clear, that the motivations of the characters are coming through, that they have unique and distinct voices from one another? These are the things that we're looking at in stage 4, phase 2. We then reach phase 3 of the revisions process, which is polish revisions. This is when we're getting in there at the micro level and looking at sentences, grammar, syntax. The story is now as dramatic as it could possibly be, but now we're asking, is the prose as effective as it can be? Is it as beautiful as it can be? Or is it as stark as we want it to be? We're really looking at that line by line revision process in phase 3. Phase 4 is choosing your path to publication and starting down that journey, which is an entire other journey onto itself. You wrote the book, now you got to get it out into the world. But luckily, we live in this amazing time where we have almost a multitude of options for publishing our work. 30 years ago, you either got a traditional publishing deal with a publisher, probably one of the big 5 in New York, or you went to a vanity press, as it was called then. You did a print run of a self-published book, you stored it in your garage, and you sold it by hand or by mail or whatnot, one at a time. Now we have things like print on demand. If you want to buy one of my books, you just go to Amazon and you order it, and Amazon prints one and ships it to you. I don't have to have a garage full of books anymore. And of course, we can print digitally, we could do ebooks. There's a ton of different ways to get our books out into the world. So we're really lucky in that sense. And so when I look at this process, this 6-stage process, and I ask myself, where do I see people struggling the most? It's this phase right here. It is the first draft phase. So let's ask ourselves, why is that? Why is writing the first draft of a book so darn hard?
A meeting thing I was
this
going to
week,
attend. It was like a first draft thing.
oh, if we could just all mute ourselves while we're on the webinar, that would be great. Thank you. So this week I sent out an email to folks asking, what sort of challenges have you encountered when trying to write a first draft of your book? And are there any other kind of topics you want me to try to address in the presentation today? So let's take a look at the responses we got to those questions. So Victoria said, since my background is writing short stories, I struggle with subplots and extended casts of characters with meaningful interpersonal interactions. Here's another struggle that folks are having. One of my biggest problems is constant editing. If you can suggest some strategies to keep the pen moving forward, it would be great. Another stumbling block for me is the middle. I know my start and my end, but something gets lost in the middle. Also, subplots. Do I write these into the first draft or figure them out for the second and deal with them then? So you can see already we're getting some overlap, right? Subplots mentioned twice. That was Kim, by the way, or Karen, sorry, who asked that. Getting motivated to write, self-doubt, for example, my story's not going to sell, who's going to read this? And also grammar, is it a must or not? Lorena asked that. I guess my challenge boils down to feeling confident in my ability to construct a solid scene or to write in a way that is meaningful and worthy of my reader's time. So it doesn't seem like a technical matter, but more of a self-belief. I have a working first draft of my memoir. My challenge is getting constructive, useful feedback. That was from Cheryl. I did not understand writing a scene, but you have helped me with that. Glad to hear I helped with that, Elizabeth. But now it's dialogue. For example, how to punctuate said. That's that dialogue tag. And Elizabeth, this is something I see all the time. A lot of people struggle with punctuating dialogue tags. My biggest challenge is the middle. Okay, we're getting another overlap, right? Dialogue, subplots, and the middle again. My biggest challenge is the middle. I usually have a great beginning idea with a strong premise, and I usually have an idea of the ending with jazz hands and flair. I love that, Lily. I had to get that into the presentation. But keeping my promise while I work through the middle, it's a constant struggle. I know it can't always be fun, but the middle always feels like work, hard work. Here's another one. How to hit the ground running without losing the reader and using foreshadowing to up the pace for the reader. That was from Frank. Linda asked, avoiding procrastination when one is beginning a new act or a very important section. That was from Judith. Hey, Judith. And Linda asked, how to keep siblings' dialogue from sounding the same. So again, dialogue, right? Here's another one from Monica and from Marjorie. Monica said, I find a lot of plot books and plot structure advice focuses on the hero's journey structure. This makes recommendations difficult for me to apply because that is not the type of book I'm writing. I'm writing a voyage and return story, and my character is not meant to be a hero. Also, I don't see a lot of advice about layering the facets of writing, how to plan the crafting of plot, character, theme almost simultaneously during the outlining drafting phase, like an organizational structure for developing all of these things. And Marjorie said, seeing the big picture. Now, I put these two last because for those of you who just finished Story Plan, you know Story Plan addresses both of these question statements here. Story Plan is my 4-week program focused on developing an outline for your book. And we do a week on character, a week on theme, a week on genre. So all the things, Monica, that you're asking about here, we cover in Story Plan. And what it does is it gives you that big picture that Marjorie is looking for. So I'm not currently running Story Plan. We just finished it, but probably in a couple of months, I'll be running it again. So if anyone is interested in participating in the next round of Story Plan, go ahead and shoot me an email and I can put you on the waiting list for the next time we run that program. It's a great program that sets you up for success writing your first draft, which is what we're here to talk about today, right? But here's the thing. Even with an incredible outline, emotional challenges, energy issues, loss of enthusiasm, shortages of time, a lack of productivity, low confidence in your work. All of these things can easily send the creation of a first draft way off course. And in addition, there's undoubtedly micro level writer's craft details, techniques, and formulas you're not yet using in your scene to scene writing. So today we're going to cover the secret to overcoming the 3 biggest problems standing in the way of you successfully completing a fun and focused first draft of your book. But first off, let's establish some house rules, okay? Because everyone always wants me to teach them how to sell a million books overnight, right? That's not what I do. I help people get their books written. This is not about book marketing. We're not going to be talking about that today. And it is going to require hard work. There's no magic wand that any writing coach can wave, no matter what they tell you, that's going to make writing a book a pure breeze. There's always some hard work involved, and it is going to take time. A book is a big project. It's just not something you can do overnight. Now, what I've done is I've grouped a number of the problems that I see into these three big categories here. And problem number one is distractions. So, in this category is something I see all the time, which is that life gets in the way. Life never stops coming at you. If you are waiting for the moons to align and for life to be absolutely perfect so that you can finally write your book, it's never going to happen because life is never perfect. We lose our jobs, we get promotions, and now we have to spend more time at our jobs. Our car breaks down, there's a storm, there's crazy politics in the air, a war breaks out, things happen, right? Life happens, and that can be a huge problem in getting a first draft of a book done. It also plays into this idea of a lack of time. I think we are most likely the most distracted and busiest generation of humans ever in existence. We have phones constantly buzzing. We have all of these different apps that are specifically designed to attract our attention, to steal our attention away from what we're trying to achieve, and to focus on scrolling through their apps or playing their games or sending their messages or whatever that is. You know, when Charles Dickens was writing, he did not have a phone buzzing next to him every 30 seconds, but you probably do, and that can stand in the way of getting your book written. Now, something else, I call this squirrel syndrome. Let me know in the chat if anyone has experienced squirrel syndrome. This is when you start writing your book, you're like 5 chapters in, and then you're like, what's that over there? Oh, I think that's a better idea. I think I better give up on this project and move over here and jump over to this project because this project is so good. But then you start working on that one, and then you're like, oh, wait, what's this one over there? And you go over there, and you're constantly leaping from branch to branch or from project to project. And as a result, you're never able to make any real movement on any of them. Let me see if in the chat anyone's resonating with that one. Yep. Is this class for a nonfiction or a memoir? I'm not sure what class you're talking about, Louise, but Storyplan does memoir and fiction. And this presentation today is primarily kind of focused on fiction, but it definitely also applies to memoir. So yeah, this constant project hopping is something I see a lot standing in the way of people getting their books written. Now, this is one that was mentioned in the comments, the revisions maelstrom. Karen, I think you mentioned this struggle of endlessly revising the early scenes in your book. You write scene 1, you write scene 2, you write scene 3, and then you're like, you know what, I think I better go back and revise scene 2 because it wasn't quite up to par. I'm revising scene 2. I might as well revise scene 1 as well, right? And you start going in this maelstrom, this whirlpool where it's 2 steps forward, 3 steps back, and you're endlessly revising these early portions of the book. And as a result, you never get to the end. You never get to that latter portion that allows you to finish a first draft. So all of these things are trying to take our attention, or are taking our attention and our time and our energy away from making progress on our book and on the first draft of our manuscript. So what do we do about that? We can't stop life from coming at us. Life happens, but we can prepare for it. One way to do this is with proper project management. This writing a book thing is not like writing a song. It's not like making a painting. You could put up a canvas and you could paint something in an afternoon. You could pick up a guitar and, write a song in 20 minutes. A book, a novel takes weeks, if not months, and years of work. And so you need to treat it like a long-term project. And what do long-term projects have? They have critical paths. They have milestones to achieve different major portions of the work. They have key performance indicators, ways of tracking progress. So many writers say, "Oh, I'm struggling to get my book written." And I'll say, "Okay, well, how many writing sessions do you have a week?" And they say, "Oh, I don't really know. I don't track it." And I say, "How long are those sessions?" And I have no idea. And I say, "How many words do you tend to write in an hour?" And they're like, I have no idea. So without performance indicators, we don't know when things are working or when they're not. If you're not getting enough word count down, I need to know that's because you're only doing one writing session a week. Or if you are writing every day, then maybe the problem is those sessions are too short. Or if those sessions are not too short, then maybe the problem is your typing abilities and you're just not able to get the word count down quick enough. In which case, maybe we move to voice to text, or maybe we handwrite our first draft. All of which is to say, a book is a big project. You need to break it down into its components, make a plan with milestones and deadlines, develop key performance indicators to track your progress along that critical path so that you know when things are working and you know when they're not. And when they're not working, it's time to change something. And when they are working, it's time to keep going, right? There's nothing better for a writer than momentum. But if you're not monitoring your project, you're not even going to know when you're in the groove and when things are going well or not. So take the time to treat your book not as just an artistic expression of your inner self, but also as a big long-term project that takes some thinking and adjusting along the way. Another great way to stay focused on your art is by participating in a community of other artists, of other writers, in our case, right? If you are attending a weekly critique group and everyone else is putting in new pages every week and you're not, there can be a little bit of motivation there to say, hey, everyone else is making progress on their work. Maybe I can too. Or if you are experiencing project management challenges in the creation of your book, maybe there's other people in that writer community who can help you out and who can say, hey, this resource exists, or this template exists, or this technique is out there. There's so many writers who have this idea that writing is a purely solitary experience, that we go into our room, we type away, and we come out with our manuscript. But no one in life succeeds alone. The problem is that books, here's M School, my book, and it's got my name on the front, right? And it says Kevin Johns. And so you think I created this book on my own. But guess what? I had beta readers. I had a copy editor. I had someone design the cover. I had someone, do the typesetting on the inside of the book. Probably a dozen people, if not more, played a role in the creation of that book, but we just don't see it in publishing. And it's so funny because in cinema, we all know it's the exact opposite. I'm a huge fan of James Cameron's Avatar films. And when those movies end, there's literally 15 minutes of credits, just thousands of names going up in the credits roll. It's like the guy who took out the garbage on Thursday nights from the set gets his name in the credits of Avatar. Whereas with books, we just pretend all these other people who help things move along don't exist, but they do. And so seek out that community, find other writers, and support one another. Another thing a group like that can do is provide you with accountability. I once interviewed author Jenny Blake, and she's a traditionally published author. And I said to her, Jenny, what's the biggest benefit of being a traditionally published author? And she said, Kevin, you know what the biggest benefit is? Contractually obligated deadlines. She said, I would never get this book written if I hadn't signed a contract saying I am going to finish this book by a certain date. And so if you are not yet a published author, or if you don't have an agent or a contract, if you are creating deadlines, these are
How do you think it
Oh,
feels?
just ask everyone to mute if you can, please. Thanks.
Like it looks a bit like I don't know.
Hey, folks, if we can just hit the mute button, that would be great. Where were we? I don't even recall where we were. Accountability, right? Without a contract, right? Deadlines that you're going to create as part of your project management are self-imposed deadlines. And the thing about self-imposed deadlines is they're really easy to miss. We're always able to come up with excuses for extending the deadline or why we didn't meet our deadline. Whereas those of you who just participated in Story Plan, you know that by either submitting your homework to me on a weekly basis or submitting it to an accountability buddy, it gave you that motivation to get that work done on time. You had someone on the other end of things waiting to have you submit that work. And so finding that kind of accountability, creating that accountability if you don't otherwise have it via a contractually obligated deadline can be a huge way to stay focused and to avoid those distractions trying to pull you away from achieving your goals. Now, let's look at problem number 2. I call this the micro level skill set gap. And this is a tough one because the reality is you don't know what you don't know. And so if you have never been taught line by line, scene level, story execution, you don't even know what you're missing yet. And Ernest Hemingway has this great quote, which is, we're all apprentices in a craft where no one ever becomes a master. And what does Hemingway mean by that? He means writing is hard and it's complicated. And even the greatest of us, Hemingway, considered himself a lifelong learner. He was still always learning about the craft, learning technique. And the reality is that there's lots of places online, in popular culture, in books, to learn macro level craft. But where do you learn how to write a great scene? Right? Everyone knows about the hero's journey, right? We heard about the hero's journey in the questions at the beginning, right? Everyone knows the Hollywood 3-act structure. This stuff is common knowledge or easily available to get your head wrapped around. But it's the macro level, writing a scene level stuff that's a lot harder to find and learn about, especially if you don't even know what it is that you don't know. And I think a lot of the years I spent wasting working on a book was because of this, was because I thought I knew everything. And in fact, I knew nothing. And I needed to start all over again at the beginning to really learn the mechanics of the art form that I had chosen to work in. So how do you address this micro level skill set gap? You seek out training resources. You need to find the information to help you learn what you don't know. And the great thing is, again, modern times. When I was going through this 15 years ago, I didn't even remember how long ago this was. Yeah, probably almost 15 years ago. I went to libraries, right? I went to the library and I looked up books on how to write a book. I had no idea writing coaches existed. I mean, they probably barely did exist at that point. I had no idea there was online courses. This was before YouTube existed. And so for me, this process of learning the art form was a process of going to libraries, checking out books and reading them and studying them. Luckily for you, you live in the modern age where you can go to YouTube and you can watch 1,000 free videos. You can find blog posts about every little minor technique. You can find coaches and editors and other people out there who can help you. It's not just you alone in a library anymore. Now, the hard thing is, there's so many resources out there that it can become really time intensive and exhausted to figure out what is the good ones or what is the thing that applies to you and your situation. And that's where some of that hard work that we were talking about at the beginning of the presentation comes into play here. You do need to put in the effort to seek out support and study it and learn it to get better at your craft. And you need to find experts who can provide you with feedback on your work. I think one of the most common things that writers do, and it can also be one of the most problematic things that they do, are critique groups. You go to these situations with other writers, you exchange pages, and then often people are providing feedback in this public group environment. And so if they're giving you negative feedback, it feels humiliating because you're in front of all these people. And if they're giving positive feedback, you don't know whether to believe it or not because maybe they're just saying it because it's a public situation. And at the end of the day, none of them are experts. It's the blind leading the blind. It's people who know nothing about the craft telling other people what to do with their book. And so I'm a big proponent of seeking experts. Obviously, I'm biased. I'm a writing coach, right? But you're not going to learn by going to someone at your own level and saying, tell me how to fix my work. You've got to go to people who have already achieved what it is you want to achieve and get them to tell you the specific details of where you're missing out. Where are there gaps in your work? What can be improved? And of course, we all need to adopt this Ernest Hemingway mindset of being a lifelong learner. None of us are going to reach that point where we say, oh, great, I'm a master. I know everything about writing. That never happens, unfortunately. But that's also really exciting because it means we can spend the rest of our lives continuing to get better and better. Now, the third big problem that I see people running into is the emotional roller coaster ride that is writing a book. So many writers start out strong and then they hit a wall. And, this is what I think a lot of people were alluding to in the beginning when they were talking about the middle of their book being challenging. It's often because people reach the middle of the book and they start to lose interest. They've been working on it for a long time. It's not as new and exciting anymore. And they start to lose enthusiasm for the project, which then leads to second guessing their plot, their approach, even their skills as an author. We get all up in our heads and everything starts to fall apart once we start questioning our ability, our decision making, or our skills in executing the story that we want to tell. Now, this is the thing we got to keep in mind. This is always going to happen. It's something called the S curve or the transition curve. And anytime we're trying to learn a new skill or take on a new project, we go through this transition curve. And it looks like this. We start with uninformed optimism. We think we're amazing. We think it's going to be easy. We think it's going to be fun and enjoyable, and everything is just going to go super smoothly. Then we've been doing it for a while and we reach a phase of informed pessimism. And we go, oh, writing a book is a lot harder than I thought. It takes a lot longer than I thought. It's really complicated. I've tried to do it and now I'm feeling pessimistic about the entire project. This then leads to the valley of despair, which is where you are faced with a decision point. Either you crash and burn, you give up, you say, this isn't for me, I'm never going to write a book, I can't do this, or you push through that wall. And if there's any runners, joggers in this group, you know the wall, right? The wall is that our bodies are trying to protect us so that we don't run ourselves to death, right? But what our bodies do is they tell us to stop running way before we actually need to. It's just our body trying to protect ourselves. But what marathon runners and long distance runners know is that when they push through that wall, there's a whole other endless amount of energy on the other side, right? And so as writers, I really, really encourage you to push through that wall when you're being overwhelmed with pessimism, when you're in that valley of despair. Say to yourself, hey, this is the process. This is what it looks like to take on a new project or to learn a new skill. And when you push through that wall, you reach that spot of endless energy that I was talking about, which is informed pessimism. That is the understanding of what it takes to get a book written, and also the understanding that you have it within you to get that done. All right, so this is the process. And guess what happens? You finally finish that first draft, and you're finally in that informed optimism phase. Then you start revisions and you go, oh, revisions is going to be really easy. And then you go, oh, actually, it's kind of hard to do revisions. Oh, I don't know if I'll ever be able to fix this book, right? We go through this again and again. It's unavoidable. And so what you can do is be aware of it rather than feeling like your whole world is falling down around you when you're in that valley of despair. Say to yourself, hey, it's the transition curve. If I just keep moving forward, I'm going to get to that place of informed optimism. And that's where you find success, and that's where you find fulfillment. And that's what I want for all of you. I want writers who feel successful and fulfilled in their craft. So how do we get there? How do we do that? Well, we talked about a little already. Push through the wall, right? Don't give in at that valley of despair. But the thing is, that's not an easy thing to do on your own. So seek out emotional support. You know, I have a whole podcast on this topic. I'll try to hit on it really quickly here. Emotion is our art form. We don't have a canvas and paint. We don't have a camera and actors. What we have are words that evoke emotions in the reader. We work in emotions, which means writers tend to be emotionally available people. They're emotionally available to their own emotions, but also to the emotions of others around them. How do you write a book about what it's like to be someone else if you're not already experienced that feeling empathy for someone else? That's the great superpower of writers, but it's also the great curse. This is why so many artists experience anxiety, experience depression, experience addictions issues. It's because we're constantly digging into our emotions and putting it on the page. And so finding a community of support around the emotional side of being a writer is really, really important, because I know a lot of you on this call, some of you have never met before, but I already know most of you are emotionally empathetic people. You care about others. You feel hurt when others are hurt. I know you're like that because that's what writers are like. And so you got to monitor your emotions and find the support to stay level instead of going on that roller coaster ride while working on your book. And one of the ways I think you can really stay motivated and upbeat is seeking positive feedback. This is not going to a critique group and saying to someone who knows nothing, rip my book apart or rip my scene apart. This is something very different. This is giving your work to someone, a trusted partner, and say, hey, give me some positive feedback on that. Because so often when people ask for a critique of their work, what they really want is just positive feedback and motivation. Back to that community idea again as well. We're all smarter when we put our minds together. We're all more successful when we share advice and share perspectives with one another. And so if we want to find a place of confidence, of level-headedness, of getting through the tough parts, being part of a community again can really help you have that perspective and say, hey, the thing I'm going through, the thing that's so hard for me, 5 other people in my writing group are going through the same thing as well. So maybe I'm not that bad a writer, or maybe this is just part of the process. And you can really have that perspective that maybe things aren't as bad as you might think when you're there with other people doing the same thing that you want to do. And of course, expert advice. I talked about that already. Rather than asking for someone at your own level how to improve your work, look to experts to provide you with editorial advice, developmental editorial advice, or whatever level of feedback or editorial advice you're looking for. Seek that out and get it. Okay, so let's look again at these 3 big challenges. Obviously, they had a bunch of subcomponents here, but these are the kind of 3 big things that I see people running into time and time again. Being distracted from their work, having their attention and energy taken away from their work. That micro level skill set gap, that lack of knowledge on the minutia of the craft that we've chosen to work on. And of course, that emotional roller coaster ride that comes with being an artist and comes with being a emotionally available person. It's just part of being a writer. And what are the secret keys to success, right? What was the name of this presentation? First Draft Secrets. What are the things that you can do to find success in completing a first draft quickly? Proper project management. This isn't a song you're banging out in 20 minutes. This isn't a painting you're doing over a weekend. This is a long-term project. Find accountability. If you don't have legally, contractually binded accountability, create accountability for yourself in other ways. Seek out training resources. Continue to be a learner with that Hemingway mindset of always learning. Get emotional support. It's going to be emotional. If you're writing emotional scenes, you're going to be feeling strong emotions. And so seek that support. And also seek consistent positive feedback. Really ask yourself, when you're giving your work to someone and saying, can you please critique this? Say to yourself, is that what I want? Or is what I really want just someone to give me the positive feedback so that I can know I'm going in the right direction and I can have that motivation and keep moving towards the finish line? And finally, seek out the advice of experts. If you do want a critique, if you do want to know technically how to improve a scene or a story or an act, get an expert to give you that advice. Don't just grab your cousin Joe who likes books a lot. Find someone who's worked with lots of writers on a lot of books. All right. Now, I was once part of a small business coaching program, and the coach said to us, welcome to the hard part, everyone. P.S. It's all the hard part. And so that goes back again to what we talked about at the beginning of the presentation when I said this does take time and this does take hard work. It's not easy to find the resources that you need. It's not easy to find a community of like-minded individuals. It's not easy to set up project management and key performance indicators and track these things. And it's obviously not easy to get expert advice unless you happen to live with a professional author or editor or writing coach. This stuff is hard, but I know you can do it. And how do I know you can do it? Because you're here at 8 p.m. Eastern on a Friday night focusing on improving your writing skills. That's not what most people are doing right now. Most people are on their couch zoning out or staring at their phones, or they're at a bar getting drunk or whatever. You're here because you care about literature. You have a book within you that you know is there and that you want to get out. And so I'm fully confident that you can do the hard work necessary to make this happen. All right. But that said, my job as a writing coach is to make things a little bit easier for you, all right? So let me ask you a question. if I told you I've developed a program that provides you with Ooh, whoa, that provides you with easy and instant access to all of the keys to first draft success that we just talked about in this presentation, would you be interested in hearing more? Let me know in the chat. I'm going to bring up the chat here and see if people are interested in hearing more. 100%. Awesome, Jessica. Yes, Brenda. Yes, Margot. Margot. Karen, Susan. All right. All right. I'm going to take that as a yes, and I'm going to keep charging ahead here. I'm going to take a sip of my tea, and then let's rock and roll on this thing. All right. So I am excited to introduce you to First Draft Group Coaching and Community. The outcome of the First Draft program is simple. It's for you to finish the first draft of your manuscript in 6 months or less and have it read like a third draft and have it actually be a fun and enjoyable experience to create. That is the outcome I'm going to give you. And when I drew this, someone said to me once, they were like, "Oh, that's so nice that you had your kids help you out in your presentation." And I was like, nope, that was me with my markers. But hopefully this gets the point across that what I'm offering is to take you from distracted focus to focused progress, to take that skill set gap and turn it into skill set development, and to take that emotional roller coaster ride of being a writer and turn it into fun and friendship. And that's how we get a first draft written. So let's talk about that big problem that we talked about, distracted focus. One, we will stop you from worrying about the wrong things while during the drafting process, and instead have you focus on the actions and strategies that lead to drafting momentum, like we were talking about the importance of momentum, and to writing productivity. First, we'll establish project milestones. Sound familiar? Reasonable deadlines and word count tracking systems. Next, we'll establish a private writer community that will hold each other accountable throughout the drafting process. Then we'll use ongoing coaching and group learning to keep you laser focused on what really matters during the first draft of your book, so that rather than going off track or hitting roadblocks or being sucked into the dreaded revisions maelstrom or getting distracted from your manuscript, you're going to see steady and continuous progress towards the completion of your first draft. So how do we get you to that focused progress? Through project tracking, through accountability, and through coaching. Next, let's talk about that skill set level gap. We'll do this. We'll combat that skill gap so that you're continuing to develop your writer's craft skills while simultaneously making massive progress on your manuscript. First, we'll build up your writer's craft skill set with 25 training courses focused on drafting techniques, productivity, strategies, and micro-level writer's craft fundamentals. What types of courses are in here? Let's go back to the beginning. What were people talking about? Having trouble in the middle of their book. Guess what? We have a course on the midpoint shift and how important it is to the middle of your book. People were talking about dialogue. We have a course on dialogue, including specifically a module on how to differentiate character voice. There was also that question of punctuating dialogue. We have a 2-part course on punctuation and grammar. Frank asked about hitting the ground running. We have a course on opening pages with a bunch of tools that come along with it. Opening pages are really important. It's the first thing readers read, and it's what agents read when they're deciding whether to represent you or not. So we have a big course on opening pages. Frank was also asking about pacing and foreshadowing. We have a course on pacing. We have a course on everything you need to address those skill set gaps in the drafting of your book. Then we're also going to have weekly hot seat sessions where I'll review pages submitted by members of the group and then walk everyone through what's working in the scene as well as where it can be improved. And then finally, we'll continue to use a private group forum, not a Facebook group, to share and recommend resources such as videos, books, and templates, including items I'll share from my vast personal collection of Writer's Craft resources in order to support your growth and continuing education as an author. So how do we get you to that skill set development? Through training, through hot seat sessions, and through a library of Writer's Craft resources. Then we've got that emotional roller coaster ride. And like I said, there's no solution for this in terms of writing a first draft is not easy, but just because something isn't easy, that doesn't mean it can't be fun. So we're going to take that emotional roller coaster ride and turn it into an emotionally joyful and intellectually stimulating experience. I think that's what we all want. How? Well, first, you'll receive ongoing feedback from me throughout the drafting process regarding where and how you can improve your scene-by-scene writing via weekly group question and answer office hours calls. What's on your mind? Where do you need help? I'll give it to you on a weekly basis. Next, each week, you'll be matched with a new positivity partner who will read your pages and provide you with only positive feedback. Not a critique partner, someone who is going to cheer you on a weekly basis. Finally, by drafting the book as part of a group program, you'll be able to benefit from the support and the community atmosphere that can only be found amongst other artists going through the exact same process and encountering the exact same challenges as you. And so as a result, you'll be able to write an incredible first draft without getting distracted by the challenges life throws your way. You'll be able to fill your Writer's Craft skill set gap while simultaneously making progress on your manuscript. And you'll be able to write an incredible first draft without going on an emotional roller coaster ride. Every writer has their ups and downs. We're emotional people, but as part of the first draft program, we'll ensure that when you reach a low point, you'll have a community of like-minded authors and an experienced writing coach to pull you through the self-doubt and get you back on top of your writing game. So how are we going to develop this fun and friendship? Via weekly positivity partner exchanges, via feedback on open question and answer office hours calls, and by developing a community spirit within the first draft community. So, is writing a book hard? Yeah, but writing a book does not have to be nearly as hard as a lot of people make it. First draft is not about all-nighters. It is not a mad scramble to the finish. This is not NaNoWriMo. This is a reasonably paced program that will keep you on course to achieving your goals without leaving you feeling stressed and pressured the way something like NaNoWriMo might. That's National Novel Writing Month. So I've been doing this for over a decade now, worked with hundreds of writers, and I can assure you that 6 months is a reasonable timeline to get done the work you need to get done while also still having a life, taking care of your family, completing your day job tasks, and participating in other activities in your life. I want writing to be a wonderful component of your life. I don't want it to take over your life the way some of these really intensive programs can. So here's exactly how First Draft works. Every Tuesday at 7 p.m. Eastern, we'll meet for that question and answer office hour session, and you'll be able to ask me, as well as a group of supportive writers, any questions you want about the writing process or your book in particular. Then we'll meet again for the hot seat session on Thursdays at 7 p.m. Eastern. In this session, I go over the pages submitted by members of the program, and I break down in detail what's working, as well as where and how it can be improved. This is basically exactly what I do with my $1,000 a month one-on-one clients. We go through those pages in detail and talk about how to improve them and where things aren't quite working. You get that at a fraction of the cost because it's part of a group program. You'll also continue to interact with other program participants in our private online community where you'll be able to communicate with each other and with me throughout the week. I'm there every day. In addition, you'll get instant access to that first draft training library that we were talking about, featuring 25 training courses covering productivity techniques, approaches to scene structure, methods for developing opening pages agents love, how to write an unforgettable ending, and much, much more. Plus, we've got that Positivity Partner Exchange. So each week you'll be matched with a new Positivity partner. We randomize it, so it's a new partner every week. And you and your partner will exchange one scene of about 2,000 words in length. You'll then be able to provide each other with only positive feedback. Now, like I was saying, I know you. Even if you and I are just meeting for the first time on this call, I know some things about you simply via the fact that you are here. I know that you want to improve your skill set so that writing a book is faster and easier. I know you want to escape a mundane existence and live a writer's life full of freedom, fun, and focused creativity. I know you want to publish a book because there's something inside of you that you want to share with the world or a contribution you want to make to society. I know you want to be surrounded by creatives who follow their passions, lift each other up, and achieve their artistic goals. I know you want to prove to the world, to your friends, to your colleagues, to your family, that you are capable of writing an incredible book. And I know you also want to prove that to yourself. So this is your chance. I invite you to join First Draft today so that 6 months from now, you'll be holding a completed first draft in your hands, and you'll be able to look back to today, to this exact moment, and you'll be able to say, that's when I took the leap. That's when I chose to believe in myself and what I'm capable of achieving as a writer. So when you join today, you get the weekly question and answer office hours calls so that you can ask questions specific to your project and situation. That's a $275 value. You get weekly hot seat office hours calls so that you can get one-on-one coaching and editorial advice at a fraction of the regular cost, a $275 value. You get a private Slack group. So we're not in a Facebook group. We're in Slack, which is a messaging program for businesses completely separate from the horrors of social media. And in there, you'll be able to participate in that community free from distractions and negativity. $150 value. You also get the 25 Writer's Craft courses so that you can continue to add to your Writer's Craft skill set. For those of you who just finished Story Plan, if you enjoyed it, you know the way that I teach, well, guess what? There's 25 more courses waiting for you inside of First Draft. That's a $1,989 value. I'll just ask everyone to mute while you're on the call, while we're on the webinar here. If you can mute, that would be great. We'll have that weekly positivity partner so that you can get the constant positive feedback throughout the drafting process. And I honestly consider it priceless. They, in the webinar template, they say you got to give the value to the stuff. So I'm going to call it $147 value, but I really consider it priceless, getting positive feedback on a regular basis. First Draft is a complete package of Writer's Craft supports that will forever transform your approach to writing and your confidence in your creative abilities. I created this program specifically to address every level of support that a writer might need in getting that first draft completed. I've looked at the other programs. I know most of the other writing coaches out there. I'm friends with them. I know what programs are available, and I can tell you nowhere else are you going to find this amount of Writer's Craft support wisdom, and training all gathered in one place and presented in an easy to consume and actionable manner. You don't have to go to the library and search through books for those 3 pages that were really important. I've got those 3 pages. I've put them into programs for you. It's waiting there for you. It's easy to use, and it's going to get you where you want to go. You're going to be able to write more books with less stress. You're going to be able to make forward progress without distraction, and you're going to be able to turn to a community of artists and Canada's top writing coach, yours truly, for support, guidance, and advice when things get difficult during the drafting process. I heard a saying a couple months ago, and it's that we all need to stop sometimes and ask ourselves, who has your back when you're on your back? When you get knocked down, who's there to pick you up? Well, if you're a writer, we do. The First Draft community has got your back. We'll pick you up when life knocks you down, and we're going to get you to the finish line. I've got some bonuses I want to include when you join the program today. Bonus number 1 is 25 sketch notes. Sketch notes so that you can easily revisit the First Draft course content at any time. So basically, this is for the visual learners out there or folks who want to revisit the content in the training courses quickly. We've got these fun visual representations of the course material that you'll be able to get. You'll also have transcripts for all of the courses. So for those of you who prefer to read along while watching training, or you want to take notes on the transcript, or you just want to read the transcripts away from the videos, you'll have transcripts of all of the courses in the program. I'm also going to give you a copy of my book, The Novel Writer's Blueprint, an ebook copy of it. This book will teach you how to write your first book using an easy-to-follow 5-step system that stimulates idea creation, simplifies workflow, and supercharges your writing. It turns that vast project of writing a first book into an organized system that will propel you past the trepidations that hold back so many first-time authors. I'm also going to give you my course, Smash Fear and Write Like a Pro. So for everyone who in those comments at the beginning, we're talking about mindset issues. We're talking about self-confidence. We're talking about feeling confident in our work. This course addresses all of those things. If you've ever worried that your writing isn't good enough, if fear of criticism and rejection has kept you from publishing work, if you find yourself endlessly redrafting for fear of releasing a less than perfect final product, or if you feel nervous or anxious when it's time to tackle a difficult chapter or begin a new writing project, this is the course for you. It's going to show you how to harness fear and move beyond trepidation that's been holding you back from achieving your literary goals. This is that mindset side of things. I'm also going to give you, as bonus number 5, a one-on-one coaching call. So we'll schedule a call between me and you where we can review and finalize your story plan if you just completed the story plan program. We'll identify challenges and roadblocks that could get in your way and identify resources and protocols to overcome them. We'll determine what supports you need to maintain focus and meet your word count goals. Basically, the goal here is just to do everything I can right off the bat to set you up for success in the First Draft program. Who are you? Where are you at? What challenges do you anticipate? And what do we need to do to ensure that you're successful in the program? So when you join First Draft, you get the weekly question and answer calls, the weekly hot seat calls, membership in the private Slack community, 25 Writers Craft courses, 25 Writers Craft sketch notes, 25 Writers Craft transcripts, my book, The Novel Writer's Blueprint, my online course, Smash Fear and Write Like a Pro, a one-on-one coaching session with me, and we're looking at a total value of $3,414.99. Now, what's inside that First Draft library? We've talked about it a fair bit already, but I'm just going to outline here. Rather than reading these all out, I'll send out the video of this tomorrow if you want to revisit all of these points. These are all the things that you're going to learn via the training library and the 25 courses. All right, there's a lot. There's a lot. You're going to learn so much. Okay, and here is the thing about the First Draft Training Library. The training library is always growing. So on those Tuesday question and answer calls, people often ask me questions ahead of time. So for example, just this last week, someone asked, Kevin, can you do a presentation on how to write battle scenes? So I prepared a 40-minute talk on how to write battle scenes for our Tuesday call. But guess what? Those calls are recorded. So that's now incorporated into the training library. It grows and it grows. There's more and more resources there for you all the time. So you've got 2 calls a week, Q&As on Tuesdays, hot seat on Thursdays, 24/7 access to the Slack community, a library of 25 courses, a positivity partner, sketch notes, transcripts, my book, the online course for the mindset side of things, a one-on-one coaching session with me. And like we said, that's about $3,400 in value. And so we're not going to charge you that though. First draft is $350 a month or a one-time payment of $1,400 for a 6-month membership in the program. So you save a lot by joining and sticking around for 6 months. That said, if you want to go with the month-to-month payments, there's no long-term commitment. You can sign up for 1 month, check out the program, see if it's for you, and then if you want to upgrade to the 6-month membership, which is what most people end up doing, you'll be able to do that. Now, here's the cool thing. This is not a new program. This is not some sort of desperate big launch to get people in. This program has been up and running successfully for several years now. And what that means is our office hours video archive includes recordings of over 150 question and answer sessions and over 150 hot seat sessions. And so bonus number 6 is I'm going to give you access to every office hours call we've ever had since January 2022. And so that means even if you never attend a single live office hours call, never watch a single training video, never check out a single sketch note or read a single transcript, you're still going to have 300 hours of coaching calls available to you to watch or listen to at any time. This bonus is easily worth over $2,000. So here it is. What are you going to get? The weekly Q&As, the hot seat, the Slack community, the Writer's Craft training courses, sketch notes, transcripts, my book, The Novel Writer's Blueprint, the Smash Fear and Write Like a Pro online course, a one-on-one coaching call with me, over 200 hours of coaching call recordings. We're looking at over $5,400 in value, and you can get all that today for $350 a month or a one-time payment of $1,400. Now, if all First Draft did was provide you with accountability to support forward progress with your writing, would it be worth it? If all it did was give you a better understanding of Writer's Craft fundamentals, absolutely necessary for commercial success, would it be worth it? If all First Draft did was introduce you to a creative colleague who becomes a lifelong creative champion for you, would it be worth it? If First Draft provided you with a plan, milestones, and tracking techniques to support the completion of your first draft in a fun and focused manner, would it be worth it? If all First Draft did was prove you aren't just a mom or a dad, a grandpa or a grandma, or a student or an employee, but an artist with something to contribute to the world, would it be worth it? If all First Draft did was help you produce a book that goes on to change one reader's life, would it be worth it? I believe the answer is yes. Here's what folks in the program who have gone on to have publishing success have had to say. First Draft changed my life. It changed the way I write and how I approach my writing. I learned new habits through accountability to my fellow writers and new skills from Kevin's teaching and editing. The biggest bonus is how much fun it is on our weekly calls. I've made new friendships and at the same time completed 60,000 word first draft in under 4 months. Highly recommended. That's Sandy Day. The first book she did in the program was Odd Mom Out. She's gone on to do several books now. Here's what Philip Ray, author of the Charles de la Four mystery series, had to say. He said working with Kevin and going through the first draft program was hugely beneficial. The materials, the community, and the accountability greatly accelerated my writing process. All right, so here we are. We've got two choices here. In storytelling, we call this a decision point. It's always a dramatic moment for our characters. So, what are the choices you folks have today? Well, the first option is do nothing. Don't take the leap of faith. Just go back to regular life and have it be the way it has always been. Or your second option here is make that investment today, and it's a small investment compared to the value you're going to get in return, and just give first draft a shot. We would love to have you in the program. So I'm going to go into the chat now, and I will post in here both of the links for you. Oh, it's not going to let me do it. Let's see here.
Kevin, can you give the dates
The dates for
when this starts?
So it's an ongoing program. It runs throughout the year, and we welcome in cohorts. And so right now, this weekend, I'm opening up for a new cohort of writers into the program, and it'll be starting next Monday. And so this weekend, we'll get you into the program, we'll get you all set up, and you'll be in first draft starting tomorrow. Just let me grab the links for you folks here, though. The chat wasn't letting me paste in. And then let's go into some Q&As here. Let's see, obviously we've covered a lot in this presentation. I do want to wrap things up in the next little while here, but let's see if folks have any questions. There we go. Okay. I'm going to post the links in the chat. Waiting room participant is not in the meeting. Oh, I think it's post. Yep. Well, I'll bring it up on the page here. I'm sorry if anyone has to type in the long URL here, but let's take a look at it. Okay. Give me a second. I'll bring it up. But go ahead, folks. Go ahead and raise your hand if you have any questions at all about anything that we've covered here today, about first draft, the program, or just about writing your first draft. Lewis, go ahead. Lewis, I think you're muted. Go ahead and unmute. Oh, okay. You're going to be in the chat? Sure. Okay, I'll take a look in the chat. So I've got the URLs there on the page, folks, for the 6-month membership as well as for the monthly payments. Brenda, are you joining from Mexico? You are excellent. It's great to see you.
I am.
I'm juggling like 6 different windows here at once, trying to get these things to paste. And then I was like, wait a minute, isn't she in Mexico still?
Well, and the thing is, we're coming back home in April and coming back, we're going to live here for a year. And so I'd love to do this, but that made me very excited that I can join in at any time. It's not a set date.
Yeah, I mean, the big benefit of the cohort is a lot of what we talked about on the call today, right? That community being in there with a bunch of other people. Well, I mean, you know, right? You went through Story Plan. You know how great it is. Okay, here's Lewis's question. He says, how long are the classes on Tuesday and Thursday nights? How many people drafts do you get to work with each night? So the calls on Tuesdays and Thursdays are both 1 hour long. And I try to be a stickler for that timeline because I know people are busy. They have other things. So we start on time at 7 p.m. Eastern and we end at 8 p.m. Eastern, or as close to that as I can get. And then in terms of how many people per call, so on the Thursday hot seat, it's just one person. So what we do is at the beginning of every cohort, we do a draw. We draw the names for the order that people are going to be in on the hot seat. And then on those Thursday calls, we spend an hour looking at that person's material. And in fact, the person who was on the hot seat this week is on the call right now. So Judith, do you want to share any insight with folks in terms of what it's like being in the program or what the hot seat's like?
Sure. You're going to love this. I answered Allison. I don't know if she got it. She said, is this appropriate for a pantser intuitive writer? What do you think I told her?
Absolutely.
Yes. I said, once we build our castle in the air, we got to put the structure under it. It's been really absolutely helpful. Absolutely.
Yeah, I mean, if anyone's, I say this at the beginning of Story Plan, but if you haven't been in Story Plan, I'll let you folks know here. I'm basically technique agnostic. I'm not the Kevin Johns certified, there's only one way to do things technique. My job is to see what's out there for you folks and then present it to you and allow you to choose the things that work best for you in your situation and the current project that you're working on. And so what I say about pantsing is, well, pantsing or planning, we both end up at the same spot. They both have to have solid story structure and pacing. They both have to have clear character arcs. They all have to have coherent themes. And so all of these things need to be there. And so whether you want to pants a manuscript and then add those things in the revisions process, or think about those things ahead of time and then work on an outline and draft that way, we all end up at the same spot either way. It's just coming at it from different means. And obviously, personally, I am biased towards planning ahead. I think it's hugely helpful, but not for everyone. Some people want to pants it, and who am I to say don't pants it? Like, it's like I said during the presentation, as long as it's working, keep doing it, right? My job is to be here for you folks when something's not working, right? When you're running into a roadblock, when you're running into a problem, when you're not able to execute on a technique you want to execute on. That's why I'm here to say, I believe in you. Here's a course you can do. Here's a template you can use. Like, I'm there for when things are rough. And when things are going well, whether that's pantsing or planning or whatever, just keep that ball rolling. Keep doing it.
And you can see, folks, he has no enthusiasm for what he does.
Well, you know, I always say, I'm not going to get by on looks, right? So I better bring the energy if I don't have the. So I think I finally got the links posted in the chat. Is it showing up for folks? Or is it showing up just as a response to Charlene? Are folks seeing it in the chat? All right. Well, it's been on the screen for a while here, so hopefully folks are able to type that in. So another
Looks like it's just under my name, Kevin. Stacy and I.
um under whose name is it under?
Charlene.
Yeah, it is under your Charlene. Is there any chance you could try copying and pasting it into the main chat? I just, for some reason, it's not letting me do that.
How about a $1,000 discount?
For a copy and paste?
Yeah.
Those are government dollars. I don't know if I can pay those. Those are union rates. All right, folks. Well, any final questions here? We're at an hour and a half. Any comments or questions? And of course, Judith is here as well. So you don't have to hear it from me. If you have questions about what it's like being a writer in the program, we got Judith. Judith, what do you think folks should know ahead of time?
Sure, I'd be glad to pop.
But off the top of your head, Judith, what do you think folks should be excited about, or what should they anticipate?
I don't think I heard this particular presentation. And I think I went right from writing intensive to this. And I think everything's been helpful, but the most helpful to me is having access to that library. And as I'm writing a scene, let's say, I can't remember what he said about the arc of the character or whatever it is, I can go back and rehear that, watch that, and remember, and then the card shuffling to check that each scene, it really sticks in your head after you've seen it a few times.
Fantastic. Well, I mean, on our story plan call this week, Stacy was saying, how badly she wanted to stay in contact with all the folks going through the program. And so this is my way of hoping to facilitate that. There's lots of people in the program already, so it would be opening up the community to even bigger people, but I'd love to have you. So Stacy asked a great question. What happens if you need more than 6 months? You just renew for another 6 months or renew month to month, whatever you want. So that 6-month membership, that target of trying to get the book written in the 6 month, it's really a median. So probably half the people finish sooner than 6 months and half the people take longer than 6 months. Everyone's different. A lot of people come in with a book half written or 3/4 written, or other people come in and they haven't written a word yet. So everyone's timelines are different. And so it's adjustable in terms of, if you need more time, you take more time. If you're done quicker, great. And we have other programs that we can take you to from there. All right, folks. Well, we are at the top of the hour, or the middle of the hour. Thank you so much for spending your Friday evening with me. It's so wonderful seeing all of you, especially those of you on camera. Great to see everyone, and I hope you will join us in the first draft. I can't wait to see all. Oh, there's Charlene. Hey, Charlene. It's great to see all of you, and I hope to continue to see all of you within the program with Judith and I. So have a great evening, everyone, and I'll see you on the next one. Have a good one.